Maple fusion, sounds of our history. How has music helped shape the past of Lethbridge's streets? Quirky and bold, with a weekend and blend. Pull up the chair, let the tale begin.
A life with music in all its forms. In today's episode, we journey from Lethbridge's Cooley's river bottom to Jaffrey, BC, and back to Lethbridge again. And we're going to trace one family's story through floods, fiddles, and fireside songs. Our guest, Colleen Bates, weaves a remarkable story through generations of her family with strong musical threads that stitch it all together. We'll hear about a cabin homestead that had to be shuttled back and forth to higher ground by a horse, and the journey west out to BC to help homestead a family village. Love and music filled this modest home, and eventually the path led back to Lethbridge, including a curious mystery hidden and discovered beneath a wall. This family and the tale is of a musical journey, and you will hear how this legacy of music was ever present, yet almost invisible, a companion through the decades. So subtle, in fact, that Colleen herself didn't even realize just how musical her family truly was. Well, what they did know, though, they were rich in love, in laughter, and in connection. And looking back, it's clear the glue that held this family together was its ties and music. This is a story of roots, love, and kindness and resilience, the kind and the way of music finding its way into everything, even when you aren't looking for it. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this story today, so pull up a chair and let's follow the mystery along the way.
Hi, I'm Shelley Kay, and this is Maple Fusion, Sounds of Our History podcast here in Lethbridge. And joining me today is
Colleen Bates.
Nice to have you, and thank you for being a part of our podcast today.
You're welcome.
Maple Mixers! Before we dive deep, let's have a little fun. Do some Maple Mixers and get to know each other.
So we have a couple of games here,
All right.
and you have a buzzer. If you'd like, there you go, and mine is. So this is this and that.
Horse hoops or ox cart?
Oh, I think I'd like to hear horse hooves. All right. So which would you rather hear, this or that? Factory hum or telegraph tap?
Telegraph tap.
All right. Here we go. And these are all historical sound questions today.
Train whistle or steam engine chug?
Oh, I think, we live in Windy City with the bridge. It's got to be train engine. Chugga chugga choo. There we go. Okay. Oh, hit. See, you know how to play this game. There we go. There we go. Okay, you are now the buzzer patrol. Okay.
Okay, which would you choose? You are granted the power to make unicorns real, or you're granted the power to make dragons real?
Oh, it would have to be a unicorn. They're soft and sweet and gentle, and yeah. And yet, dragons are perhaps more real because, yeah.
Yeah, but they might burn you. There we go.
Well, that was fun.
That was.
Oh, my gosh.
A fun little game. I wouldn't mind playing that with my grandkids.
There we go. Okay. Well, we're going to hear more about your grandkids, I hope. Okay.
Now we're going to go between the lines, where the music, the memories, and the meaning of the story unfolds.
You have quite the family history here in Lethbridge as just generally. Can you take us back to your great-great-grandfather's life in Lethbridge?
Well, it was my great-grandfather,
Okay.
and my great-grandfather moved to Lethbridge, and I can't remember the year, but it was in the 1800s when they were starting mining. And he was a surveyor. He was with the survey crew, and he came to Lethbridge and worked for a little while, and then he went back to Redcliffe, Alberta, and married a nice little lady who happened to be 14 years old.
Wow.
But yeah, and they came to Lethbridge and set up a homestead in Lethbridge.
And where was that homestead?
The homestead was in the river valley, in the Old Man River Valley. And the first homestead was somewhere around Paradise Canyon. I'm not sure of the exact location, but I know that it was in the river valley down there in a log house. And that was their first home. That's where my grandmother was born.
And so they built a log house, and was it just all peaches and cream and roses?
Oh,
or?
no, I don't think so. I think that you can imagine back in the 1800s, and it was a tough time, and you know, they got some cows and chickens, and actually they brought some animals with them when they came from Redcliffe, and my grandmother rode my great grandmother rode in the boxcar with the sow that was having babies, and so when she got to Lethbridge, the mama pig had some babies, and so she scooted out of the boxcar and ran to the baker to get some loaf of bread to feed to the pig.
So they came by railway.
They came by railroad.
And would she have had food for herself on that boxcar?
Oh, I imagine that they had fixed themselves up a little picnic, or, you know, I imagine that they did. I can't see her family letting her go off to Lethbridge without some food in a basket, or, you know, and
Wow.
yeah.
And so she looked after her animals before herself when she got off the train.
And my grandmother or my great-grandmother would have done the same as my grandmother, and the same as my father, and the same as me, and the same as my children. And we always look after our animals. That's our first job.
So they came and they built a log house, and it was probably pretty sturdy. And is it
and
still
they
standing?
didn't have any neighbors or anything.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't believe. No, it's not standing anymore because they built the golf course and there's a subdivision, Paradise Canyon subdivision down there at the river bottom, and yeah.
So what happened to the log house from that first place?
Apparently, a big flood came in and was going to wipe it out, and so. From what I understand, and the only other way to do it, I would think, at that time, was with a horse and wagon or on skids, and they skidded the house up to the top of the coulee. Then they lived up there for a while. And then eventually they made their way over to another river valley where the number 3 highway went through at that time. Built a homestead down there at the river valley across from the par 3.
That's quite the journey. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So that part of your family, were they musical?
Did hear a story that Joshua Davies was a teetotaler. He didn't drink alcohol, and he thought that, maybe his wife thought that musical instruments were the devil's instrument. And so he did have a violin, and he gave it to one of the neighbors because the children were crying when he pulled it up one day. So, and and the story was that my great Aunt Mary said, you know, Papa, this is the work of the devil, and we can't have it in our house. And so he just gave it away.
Gave it away.
Now, I don't know whether he was musical or not.
Okay. Well, he must have had some aspirations.
Oh, he must have. He
least.
came from Wales, so I'm sure that he was musical.
Right.
Yes.
So how did the Jaffrey connection, Jaffrey, BC, how did that connection come into play?
Well, my grandmother, Anne, was married to my grandfather, Earl Boland, and they lived in Lethbridge. And my dad, they were friends with this fellow, and he had a sheep farm. And so in Lethbridge, and so Fred decided that he was going to buy a homestead up in Jaffrey and move to Jaffrey. And so my father, in 1945, went with the sheep and Fred, and they moved to Jaffrey.
And so how did music enter your life?
Well, my father played any instrument by ear, and he loved music. And so he had a guitar, and he had a harmonica, and he had an accordion. And so in the evenings, I mean, there was no TV, and so he had noisy kids, and so he would pull out his guitar, and him and my mom would start to sing, and then us kids would sit around, and then just by osmosis, we all started singing along with Dad and Mom, and that was how he entertained us and kept us from getting unruly.
So are those kind of your first memories of music as a child too?
They are. They really are. And you know, I have to say that my grandmother, when she moved up to Jaffrey, because she moved to Jaffrey with my uncles, and my grandmother in her house, and as she went to keep house for Fred because her marriage had broke down. And so she kept house for Fred, and they had an organ, a pump organ in their house.
Okay.
And I could remember playing on that pump organ when I was a little girl. She would let us make so much noise. Bless her soul.
And did you do, so other than playing the pump organ, did you have any other exposure yourself from your family, but in school or choirs?
Oh, when I went to school, it was called the Glee Club. It was the South Country Glee Club. We all wore our little uniforms with our gray skirt and little blue sweaters and white shirts. And we went around to nursing homes and to hospitals and to schools. And I can remember going down across the line to Eureka, Montana.
And so your siblings, you said there were 7 of you.
7 of us.
And were they musical as well?
Oh, yes. My oldest sister, Gwen, had a beautiful voice. My dad would put her in talent shows. And she won a couple, and my sister Charlotte and I were jealous. And anyways, that's another story. And my sister Charlotte was very theatrical and musical. She was an entertainer, and she was in plays, and she had a beautiful voice also.
Do any of the siblings play instruments?
Oh, yeah, my brother Bill plays guitar, and he can play other instruments too, all by ear. He has taken a little music lessons and stuff, and he entertains us now that Dad's gone. My brother Russell, him and I sing the backup because neither of us have very good voices, but my sister Kelly is also a good singer, and then my youngest brother Blaine loves to sing also.
Okay.
I was actually talking to one of my nephews yesterday, and I said, "When did you learn music?" And he said, "Auntie, we've always known music." He said, from the time we were born, like when we sat around and sang songs.
And so Jaffrey seems to have such a rich music community. And if we can bring this back to Lethbridge, I believe you've got a few nephews that play music and here in town too.
I do. My one of my nephews, Tyson Weep, he started out going to the jam sessions and stuff, but he started his first band in Jaffrey with a couple of his buddies. And so he's in 2 bands. One is called Atomicos, and the other one is called Cope. And he's played he used to play at the Tongue and Groove and did jam sessions there, and sings at the Owl and the Slice. And
I believe I've seen him at the Owl, actually.
Yeah. And
but his music is not quite as laid back and folksy, perhaps, as your parents might have played.
He's more rock. Yeah.
And so what brought you to Lethbridge?
Well, I moved here in 1970, to take hairdressing. Met my husband, and he is the love of my life. And so I wanted to move back to Jaffrey, and he wanted to stay in Lethbridge. And so I chose to stay in Lethbridge with my husband.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, and I heard a little story, like why did you move to Lethbridge itself? Not just to do hairdressing, though, did you? Or
Oh, well,
Was
that's I had quit school in
Okay.
grade 10 because all I needed was grade 10 to get my hairdressing. And
Right.
I really was not a big fan of school. And so
that's kind of where I was heading.
So one day, I had been working in Fernie, and I come back to Jaffrey to visit my mom, and she had my clothes all out, and she had the suitcase packed, and I said, "Where am I going?" And she said, "You quit school to go become a hairdresser, and you are going to become a hairdresser, and so you're going to Lethbridge, and you're going to live with your great Aunt Mary, who was my grandmother's sister. She was 82 years old, and I'd only met her maybe, I can remember her coming to Jaffrey and spending a week, I think, with my grandma, Nano. And so I went and stayed with Auntie Mary and started my hairdressing course.
So here we have a young girl
17.
coming out of a small town.
Oh, my
to a
goodness.
little
Yeah, I
bigger
come from
town.
a place with maybe 40 families, if that, to Lethbridge. And I can remember thinking, oh, nobody's going to know me. Like, they're not going to be the same as me, right? And I was scared to death.
And living with another generation or two.
Two generations, like, difference between Aunt Mary and me. But Aunt Mary had some children, and they were so kind.
So it worked out.
It worked out very well.
Well, now you have children.
Mm-hmm.
How many children do you have?
I have 4.
And are they musical?
Surprisingly, they all love music, and they all try to do a little something. I'm not sure about my one son, Kevin. I think that he's the one that really does like music, country music. He's knows every song and every word to every song. But my oldest son, Sean, plays guitar a little bit. And Lyle had a guitar when he was a kid, so he passed it on to Lyle or to Sean. And so Sean plays that guitar. We all play behind closed doors. And then my son, Kyle, is a salesman. And during COVID, he was tired of hearing all the bad news on the radio when he was traveling. So he went and got himself a harmonica and taught himself how to play the harmonica. And my daughter, Erin, decided that she needed to learn how to play the violin. She always wanted to play the violin. And she decided that she was going to take violin lessons, and she did. And we're so proud of her.
Awesome. And does she play other instruments as well?
Well, she played in school. She played in grade 7. Both Sean and Erin took saxophone or trumpet or some squawky thing. And so Sean was the first one because he was the oldest. We went down to Leishman's to rent the trumpet. And he started tooting on it, and he took it to school, and I just told him, like, you can't play that here. It's terrible sounding. And so I can remember that was in September that he started school. And in October was Thanksgiving. And he come home and he said, Mom, they're having a recital. You need to come and listen to us play with the band. And I said, oh, okay. And I was just dreading it because I couldn't stand one trumpet. How the hell was I going to stand 30 of them? Anyways, I was just amazed because that teacher had taught the kids how to play, and it sounded beautiful.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. So much like your parents, cultivating music and having music around. And I understand your brother Bill plays at your house and has.
We have
so
parties.
all of that
continues through generations.
We do. We look so forward to all getting together, and whether it's in Lethbridge or whether it's in Jaffrey or whether it's halfway between, and we always have singing. And yes.
Well, and in a few minutes, we'll come back and we're going to talk about your husband again and music and a very interesting mystery about a Lethbridge artifact. But first,
Sugar and facts. And now it's time for a little sugar and facts trivia treat to keep your brain dancing.
the trivia for this episode, well, it's going to take us back to Lethbridge's most iconic sites. There was a brewery here, and it was founded in 1901 by Fritz Sick. And in 1958, someone new was brewing local favorites. So this episode's trivia question is, who was it and what was mysteriously found on that site's wall? We'll get the answer to that in a few moments, but let's carry on with our story and Colleen Bates here in Lethbridge. So, Colleen, loving and living music is just as valid as performing it. And that love clearly shapes many people's worlds, whether it be waking up in the morning and listening to music or playing in Carnegie Hall. It's all something that it's valid to all of us and seems to make our world, it's the international language. Would you say that's true in your world?
I would say it's very true in my world. I can't imagine my life without music.
Well, and interesting, how did you discover new music when you were younger? Radio, records, friends?
Well, the first memory I remember of hearing somebody sing other than my dad was my mom had an old phonograph record player.
Oh, wow.
And so we would twirl that thing up and stick the record on. And then when I got older, we had the transistor radio. My sister Charlotte and I would walk down the road with the transistor radio between us, trying to turn the radio the right way to get the station to come in. Yeah, we had record players. And
so do you remember the first concert that you ever went to?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band came. And I went to it, and it just about blew my ears out. I couldn't hear for 3 days after because I was dancing on the floor in front of everybody. We had floor seats, and the speaker was right in front of my ear, and I didn't care. And I was like, yeah, we had so much fun. Yeah. And I've been to lots of concerts since. I've been to see the Beach Boys, been to see Kenny Rogers, Ellen Jackson, Randy Travis.
And is this all in Lethbridge?
Most of them were in Lethbridge.
So would you say that Lethbridge has a good or really good music scene?
Oh, Lethbridge has a fantastic music scene. Absolutely. It's if you want to go to the Yates, you can listen to music there. You can go to any pub and there's music. And actually the Lethbridge Gymkhana Club, I guess they would be my great uncles, and they started that in the west side on West Lethbridge, and they used to have their Gymkhana dances at the Lethbridge Exhibition Grounds.
Wow. So do you play any instruments?
Well, really, I don't. I kind of play behind closed doors. I can pick out Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on a piano. But my friend Shelley, bless her soul, got me to play the ugly stick, and I'm very good at playing the ugly stick.
You are very good at playing an ugly stick. Yes, you are.
Well, that's my one instrument I can play is the ugly stick.
And very well.
Yeah.
Okay, so what keeps you going to concerts today? What does music give you that nothing else does?
I just love going to see them and to listen to the music and to wonder what made that person write that song. And because we all hear a song and we think, the words to that song, well, he was doing this, he had broken heart or whatever. but it was really because he wrote it because his dog died or whatever, right? Yeah. And I just love music.
Well, I could tell that. I could tell that. Was there a moment in your life where you realized, oh my goodness, look at my family. We are a musical family.
We are. Ever since I started thinking about this interview with you, I was thinking that there's 7 of us, and most of our children play an instrument, or their children's children play instruments. And when we have our family times, it's like the house is too small, but we still find floor space,
So you actually are a very
we are a musical family.
You really are. And again, it goes back to not even having to play an instrument, or it could just be the sense of music, or how it has continued through your life or been a part of your life is very, very interesting. And if your family story had a soundtrack just for your family, what sounds or songs would be on that?
Oh,
You'd have a mix, I think, if I can help a bit, because you'd have country, you'd have some Christian.
We would have a little bit of everything. Maybe the theme from Beverly Hillbillies or something like that.
There you go. So the theme from Beverly Hillbillies might be your soundtrack. Yeah. And from there it would weave out and everybody takes their piece.
Exactly. It's like, there's, I can't think of any one song that would do it.
All right.
Any one theme that would do it, because we all like different music. My sister Gwen loved bluegrass music. She liked all music too. We all loved.
There you go.
We love all music.
Well, I think encapsulating. I think the Beverly Hillbillies, because they had a really good song too, and from there they all were their own people.
Exactly. And we're all individuals, each and every one of us, and.
So is there anything that you would like to share with us that we either haven't asked, or just on the tip of your tongue that you want to share with us?
I just thought of something. I have to say that I am so proud of my family, my heritage.
That is wonderful. And that speaks to it. It really does. And when you look at what a beautiful family you have, it's so many people would just be so envious to have your family history, let alone how the music has carried on through your family. You have a beautiful family.
Well, and it's like, our families weren't rich, but we were rich in music.
Yes. And that tied you together. Yes. And that richness is something that money cannot buy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I want to thank you so much. But we're not done yet, because we are going to bring it on in, and we have something special. And we're going to tie in our trivia question and show you the answer to the mystery. We'll be right back. Bringing it in. Let's switch gears and see what our guest brought in to share about their part of history. Bringing it in. First, our trivia question this episode ties into what you have brought to show us. But the trivia question was, the Old Six Brewery in Lethbridge was originally founded by Fritz Six in 1901. And we asked, who operated the brewery in 1958? Do you know who that was, Colleen?
I believe it was Molson.
Yes, it was. And this is going to tie in directly. Now, of course, Molson continued brewing local brands, and operations ceased following Molson's merger with Carling O'Keefe. Maybe that helped the music flow too. Who knows? The brewery buildings were demolished, leaving only the brewery gardens or Brewery Hill as a living legacy of that history, as most people in Lethbridge know it. However, I believe you've brought something that is going to open up and create perhaps even more of a mystery.
you know something of a living legacy that we don't know. This is exciting. So, my goodness, you're going to have to share. This is your bringing it in to show us, but this is the mystery too. There must be a story behind this.
Back in 1971, I was dating my husband. He was working for this company, Kenwood Engineering, and they were tearing down some of the buildings at the brewery. And I believe he was tearing down the Lethbridge Ironworks, because I can remember him coming to visit me, like coming to the school to see me on lunch hour, and his face would be all black with coal dust, and the only thing white was his eyes and his teeth. And everybody would laugh and say, "Oh, your boyfriend's here, right?" And anyways, long story short, Lal was tearing down an old building at the brewery, and they were going to build a new cold beer store. He was working and pulling things down, and he pulled down a wall, and in behind it, the counter or whatever it was a violin.
In the wall.
In the wall. And it was just like, everybody's heard about the Stradivarius, and it's like, oh my goodness, that's so exciting. And, anybody who found a Stradivarius, that must be it's antique and yeah.
A lot of money.
Worth lots of money. Anyways, Lyle brought it home and he took it to his parents' house, and he left it at his parents' house because his Uncle Bob was coming to town, and Uncle Bob could play the fiddle, and he played very well. And so that was a priceless heirloom as far as we were all concerned, and it hung on the wall in their bedroom. And it was like, don't touch the violin. It was like only Uncle Bob could touch it. And
and so was it a Stradivarius?
Apparently, because inside it was marked Stradivarius. But years later, we found out that apparently the Eaton's catalog sold Stradivarius violins, and quite a few people have them.
So it was obviously just a change a bit of the writing. Yes.
But anyways, it was just part of our... He also found a few other things, and we don't have them. We've gave them to our daughter, Christina.
Can we take a peek here at this violin? So this obviously isn't... Well, it wasn't in a case. It was on the wall.
It was. It just hung by with a little piece of rope on it.
Okay, so can we take a peek?
Well, sure.
Just on this side here, I think. Wow. And so did you ever find out who put the violin in the wall?
No.
Or
we never did find out. No.
And so he just took the fiddle and took it.
And he had found some old calendars at the same time. They were from 1925 and 1926 and 1927.
And do you have those still?
No, we don't. Lyle had a daughter, and she passed away, and those calendars we had gave to Christina.
Okay. So this fiddle was in behind drywall type?
Not drywall.
Of course not in those years.
Lath and plaster, or maybe just tongue and groove wood, Yeah.
And so this wouldn't have been the fiddle that your grandmother made your grandfather get rid of?
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! He gave it to my grandmother, and it hung on my grandmother's wall in her bedroom.
And this was in Jaffrey?
In Jaffrey, and apparently Nano could play it. So it might have been the instrument of the devil for her parents, but I don't think it was for Nano.
Yeah. So you've brought a picture with you of your grandfather's riverbed homestead. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
yes,
so let's take a peek if we could of that as well.
All right. So this picture is a copy that my great Aunt Mary gave to me.
Wow.
And it is a picture of their homestead down across from the Par 3 golf course. And
So
is
this
the
is
house.
when they moved it on the skid with the
Well,
horses?
I don't know whether they built it or if it was skidded over there, and it could have been skidded over there. I'm sure, like, they were poor, so they probably didn't have money to buy lumber to build a new house. I have it hanging on my wall because my father was born in that house.
Wonderful.
And I would imagine that, I don't know why he was born in that house, but maybe Nana went to visit her mother to have the baby. Because
She was Jaffrey and had come in?
No. Dad was born and raised in Lethbridge.
Okay.
So, they lived over, Nano and Grandpa Boland lived over on the 6 Mile Coulee
Okay.
over there. And they had a little acreage farm, and they sold vegetables. And
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So we have from homestead to brewery to rock and roll music, punk rock music, country music. We're going to share a small original clip of Tyson, your nephew who lives here in Lethbridge with his band called
Atomicos.
Your family history is simply amazing, and the music that you have in your family, it's lovely to see the pride that you have, and you should be so proud of
I
your
am so
family.
proud of
Yes.
my family. Yes, I am.
I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Colleen. It has been an absolute pleasure to get your story, to get to know you better. And next time we're going to have you play an ugly stick for us.
Okay.
And that's all we have today. I'm Shelley Kay with Maple Fusion here in Lethbridge, and this is
Colleen Bates.
Rainbow Fusion.